We have all 240 reserves on that, and they can just pick the reserve that they actually reside on.
Tonight, Ontario's chief electoral officer gears up for more First Nation voting in the upcoming provincial election.
It would certainly make her life easier if she was in long-term care.
A community in the Yukon wants a long-term health care facility.
Ruling to the child welfare case has brought some additional resources.
And a new facility for Mohawk children opens its doors in Cornwall, Ontario. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. The province of Ontario is gearing up for an election, and there's a question of getting First Nations people engaged in the process. So this morning, the Chiefs of Ontario met with leaders from major provincial parties. Here's Annette Francis with a look at that.
It was an opportunity to raise issues and hear party platforms, as the Chiefs of Ontario met via Zoom with what was supposed to be the leaders of all four major parties. The mental health crisis and addictions in communities are priorities for First Nations leaders. NDP leader Andrea Horvath agreed.
We have an obligation to provide people with the tools that they need to build a good life, to overcome addictions, to get supports, therapies, and counseling, and treatment for mental health. Mental health pain is just as serious as physical pain, and we really need to address the lack of mental health services.
Another leading issue is the need for affordable housing. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca said it will be a part of his party's platform.
I will confirm that 22,000 units, if I can put it that way, that we're talking about for Indigenous, to support Indigenous people would be off reserve. Just so we know, 22,000 over a decade off reserve. The full costing of our platform will be included when we reveal or release our platform in just a few days. There will be a very large and bold component part of that.
But party promises aren't the only way to engage with potential First Nation voters. Ontario's Chief Electoral Officer, Greg Asenza, says it will be easier for them to register online.
We altered our e-registration application tool so that now an individual who might have civic addressing issues, they can actually pull down, and we have all 240 reserves on that, and they can just pick the reserve that they actually reside on.
Asenza also says election materials will be made available in First Nations languages.
Additionally, we have translated information in over 30 languages, including Ojibwa, Oji-Cree, Cree, and Mohawk, that we've put in place.
Premier Doug Ford was unavailable to meet with the Chiefs of Ontario. The election will be held on June 2nd. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
It was an uncomfortable week for child welfare services in Quebec. First came the viral video capturing an Inuk child in Nunavut being apprehended by police. A few days later, Indigenous groups roasted the Quebec Human Rights Commission for ignoring their demand to investigate systemic discrimination faced by Inuit children in care. Here's Lindsay Richardson with a recap.
It's a chill-inducing scene from Quebec's far north, a 7-year-old Inuk child being hauled back to foster care. It's been viewed more than 140,000 times. Commenters questioning if youth protection services actually protect Indigenous kids, a question advocates in the South have asked for years.
People are, they're passing the buck, they're doing everything they can not to admit that these things exist, but they exist, and we live them daily, and the women and their children and families live them.
Inuit children are overrepresented in child welfare. The VN Commission heard 1 in 3 are in the province's care, but there are several reports now calling out the quality of that care. One report, looking at a Montreal-based agency, found negative and stressful interactions with social workers, racist attitudes, and an overall lack of understanding and support for harm reduction. 6 months ago, its authors teamed up with a race relations group to demand an inquiry by the Quebec Human Rights Commission. And to this day, they say no response.
It's a little bit of a slap in the face, right? I mean, it's really disheartening, and when you have nowhere to turn, you assume that the Human Rights Commission will be there to help you and to to be ignored is tough to take, because where else are you going to go?
In an email to APTN, the Human Rights Commission explained this investigation request has many aspects. In this sense, the process and processing times are not the same. It's been a difficult year for Indigenous child welfare in Quebec. The province just passed a new and improved youth protection law with minimal Indigenous input. They're squaring off in court against Canada over a federal law giving First Nations the right to create their own child welfare systems. On top of that, a class action lawsuit alleges Quebec deprived Inuit children of essential health, social, and other services.
You know, you start to ask the question whether there's a differential treatment here. But, you know, do Indigenous youth and do the Indigenous rights, Indigenous lives, do they matter as much?
But with hard proof of the problems and lists of solutions already in hand, the groups involved don't understand the holdup.
We know that the Commission has a problem with excessive delays, but when it involves the safety and the development of children, especially children in care, there should not be any delay.
As for the video out of Nunavut, APTN News contacted the child's mother and her lawyer. Neither were immediately available to comment. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
For decades, a small community in the Yukon has been grappling with the lack of long-term care facilities. Now, community members and the local First Nation say it's time for the territorial government to step up and build a facility closer to home. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
Hey, tell me the story.
Isabel Welsh has been caring for her 20-year-old granddaughter Jennifer since she was a baby. Jennifer is Ojibwe. Her family is originally from Ontario. She has cerebral palsy and requires tube feeding and special bathing facilities.
And you notice that she leans to her right.
But Welsh is getting up in age and wants respite from Jennifer's round-the-clock care.
It would certainly make her life easier if she was in long-term care, where we could visit her all the time.
In their small community of Watson Lake, there's no long-term care facility. The nearest assisted living facilities are 5 hours away in Whitehorse. Welsh says it's a long, costly drive for many families in the area.
It's just not convenient. And I know that we have an aging population here that are going to need care.
We need this facility, and we're getting tired of our people going, our elders going and leaving us. And
Stephen Charlie is the chief of Liard First Nation in Watson Lake. He knows the issue firsthand. He has family members that were cared for at a long-term care home in Whitehorse because there were no other options. He says sending loved ones to Whitehorse is breaking families apart.
And this separation is really hard on people, and especially our elders and family. And this is why we need a facility here in Watson Lake.
Charlie knows operation, maintenance, and staffing are obstacles to building a facility, but he says not building one will only cause more harm to the community.
There's always costs looked at, but the cost to the community of not having their elders here is just it's unacceptable.
APTN reached out to Health and Social Services Minister Tracy Ann McPhee to see what the status was of a long-term care facility in Watson Lake. She said in an email statement, although there are no plans for the construction of a long-term care home in Watson Lake at the moment, we will continue to monitor and act on changes in assessed community needs.
Okay. This room used to be a bedroom, but we have now turned it into a bathing area for Jennifer.
As for Welsh, she'll continue to care for her granddaughter the best way that she knows how.
She taught me that life is not by what you can produce or what you can contribute to society, but that life is important in itself just by being there.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Watson Lake.
We always like to hear what you think about that story or any of the stories we cover or should be covering. Here's how you can get in touch with us. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see all of our latest stories. The North Battleford RCMP is hoping a newly released surveillance video will help solve the Christmas Eve homicides of 2 women in that city. 25-year-old Alyssa LeCain of North Battleford and 20-year-old Daphne Bear of Sweetgrass First Nation were found dead after a house fire the afternoon of December 24th. In the video, a person in a dark coat can be seen. Police want to speak to them as they may know something about the fire or the homicides. People are asked to note trim around the hood on the person's jacket and distinctive brown or yellow colored boots. Investigators hope these 2 details will help identify that individual. We need to take a break, but still ahead, a community losing housing, another one gaining. We're going to have those stories after the break. Stay with us. To Cornwall, Ontario now, where a child advocacy program has opened its doors. The new office is an expansion of child welfare services for Mohawk children and families who are members of Akwesasne but now live off reserve. Here's Annette Francis again.
Yay! And with the cutting of a ribbon, a new urban space for Mohawk families opened. It will provide culturally appropriate supports and services for children and families in the process of being adopted or have been apprehended. Program manager Kim Hearn said it will help children and families to connect with their roots.
We want to teach some of these families that what it means to be from Akwesasne, and that's the thing. I mean, some of the children don't know their clan. They don't know their family. Every one of us that work here, we can tell you who you're related to, how you're related, and some of those secrets that your family didn't want you to know.
Grand Chief Benedict says it's extremely important that community members can access the same child welfare services that the Mohawk Council provides regardless of where they're living. The expansion is a result of a $40 billion settlement finalized in January to settle child welfare claims. Roughly $20 million of that is to be used on program reforms across Canada over the next 5 years. It will allow First Nations to provide services so children and youth remain connected to their families, communities, and culture.
Rulings of the child welfare case has brought some additional resources, but also has identified some of the gaps that exist for our community members who want to be on reserve, who normally would be on reserve, but unfortunately are not. So the office here will provide additional services to our members who are living off reserve, but also are transiting back onto the reserve. So,
Regional Director Ann Scotton of Indigenous Services Canada says it's an essential step for First Nation communities to care for their children. She commends Akwesasne's child advocacy model.
This is key. This is a truly phenomenal advancement in the way that band representative services are offered. Many communities have services and have had a limited range of services, but this, the way that this is organized really offers service to every member of the community, no matter where they find themselves and no matter what their circumstances are.
Grand Chief Benedict says the Mohawk Council is prepared to work with other First Nation communities in Canada that are interested in their child welfare model. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Cornwall, Ontario.
To southern Alberta on the Siksika Nation, a new housing complex is underway to keep children on reserve and with family while they're in the foster care system. Tamara Pimentel has that.
11-year-old Letitia Youngman is fluent in Blackfoot and has been dancing her whole life, something she says could have been taken from her if she hadn't grown up on the Siksika Nation.
I like it in Siksika, and some people, they get taken away from this place. Their family and loved ones are here, and some people get taken away from that.
Along with a youth drum group, Youngman performs at the opening ceremony for a future housing complex. The 24 units will house at-risk families on Siksika and children in the foster care system. The children will stay with extended families and the complex overseen by Siksika Family Services. The project kicks off steps away from the former residential school that caused intergenerational trauma for many families here.
So we want to have more children move in with extended family.
Merlin Breaker is the CEO with Siksika Family Services. He says the future homes are meant to undo the effects of the institution by keeping children in their community and connected to their culture.
If they're connected to family, extended family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, I think you have the inner strength to take on all challenges.
Siksika has roughly 400 cases with child services, and 68% of children in care within Alberta are Indigenous.
The basic human rights or basic human needs, you need to be able to feel secure.
Chief Ore Crowfoot says those basic needs lead to a sense of belonging.
Probably weekly, I get an email or a call about somebody that's somehow traced their lineage back to Siksika. They don't fully know, but they're trying to figure out that sense of belonging, that sense of where I'm from. And a lot of those go from these kids that were taken off the reserve.
This unit is just a start. More homes like this are expected to pop up throughout Blackfoot territory in the future. But this one is expected to be finished in the summer of 2023. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Siksika.
Okay, at this time,
it's time for another break, but when we come back, new statistics on violence against Indigenous women, and it's not good news. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Here's a new art installation. It's on now at the University of Manitoba. Jared Delorme sent this photo in. It shows some of the work by artist Kristen Flattery. Be sure to send your photos of friends, family, the land, your pets, wildlife. Email them to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the east, we've got 6 with a chance of flurries in Fredericton, sunshine, and 5 in St. John's. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 0 with a chance of flurries. Kuujjuaq, -3 and sunny. Val-d'Or, 8 and sunshine. Montreal, rain and 9. 9 and sunshine for Ottawa, 10 and sunny for Toronto. 9 and sunshine for Sioux Lookout, 11 for Timmins and Kapuskasing. Sunny skies there too. Sun continues in northern Manitoba, 4 in Churchill, 8 in God's Lake. Rain and 8 degrees for Winnipeg, 10 and some showers expected for Dauphin. 15 and sunny in Swift Current, 16 and sunshine for Yorkton. 8 and showers for La Ronge, 11 and sunny in Stony Rapids. Sunny and 8 for Fort Chip, cloud, and 11 for Fort McMurray. Sunny and 12 for Edmonton, 14 and sunny for Medicine Hat and Lethbridge. Sun for Kamloops, 16 degrees. Quesnel, showers and 12 degrees. Sunny in Prince Rupert, 10 degrees. 11 in showers for Prince George. Whitehorse, 8 with a mix of sun and cloud. Old Crow, mix of sun and cloud for you, 2 degrees expected. Mix of sun and cloud for Wrigley and Wattie, both 5 degrees forecast there. -4 and a mix of sun and cloud for Fort McPherson. Inuvik, -3 and sunny. Newyacht, -9 and sunshine. Arviat, -3, sunny skies there. Pangertung, -8 with a chance of flurries. Joe Haven, sunshine and -11. A book by two-time Governor General Award winner David Alexander Robertson is being put back on library shelves. The Great Bear and 2 other books by the Cree author were removed from circulation by the Durham District School Board in southern Ontario. That caused a lot of outrage, but the board said that Indigenous families raised some concerns. A statement today by the Durham School Board says, in part, an accelerated review process allowed us to engage in conversations with some members of the local Indigenous community. Those discussions have placed the focus on the importance of making books by Indigenous authors available to students, particularly Indigenous students, based on providing choice. In response to this feedback, we will be returning the books to library circulation. In a statement, Robertson thanked the board for, quote, making the right decision. Well, a brand new Stats Canada report out today paints another troubling picture of the violence against Indigenous women, girls, and gender diverse people. And it's even worse if you've been a ward of the federal or provincial governments. 1 in 10 Indigenous women had been under the legal responsibility of the government as a child, and of them, 81% experienced physical or sexual violence in care. The report also shows 2/3 of Indigenous women have experienced physical or sexual assault in their lifetime. 56% of Indigenous women have experienced physical assault in their lifetime, while almost half of Indigenous women have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. You can find the entire report on the Statistics Canada website. You can find that entire report on the Stats Can website. Well, violence and sexual misconduct against women and girls was the topic of In Focus today. Last week we talked with women about the problem, and today we sat the men down. They are the ones who need to stop it. 2 of the men that are doing that work to heal toxic masculinity with support groups had this to say.
A lot of us men, Indigenous men, we're taking ownership of our toxicity, and we're really wanting to rekindle and reclaim Indigenous ways of being and Indigenous ways of healing. So we're out there, trying to heal. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's the one thing that a lot of Indigenous people have, is that disconnection to spirit, I found. And spirit is really the center of everything, of the being of who you are. So we're working towards, finding that, rekindling that spirit and finding that spirit, that connection that was lost. We got to understand that our Indigenous men, our roles were taken from us from colonization. And then it was replaced with misogyny. It was replaced with patriarchy. Traditionally with the Anishinaabe, women were the ones to make the decisions, and it was up to us men to support that.
To all the women and children and elders out there, that as a man that is trying to break the cycle, that I am very sorry for, all the negative things that happen from a man, especially when it comes to the toxic masculinity. And so with the program, the Men of the North, we are trying to dismantle toxic masculinity from a grassroots level. So getting the guys in each and every week and talking about, a lot of those things us men don't normally talk about, and being able to release that emotional tension, I guess, and being able to show our vulnerability in a more safe and healthy environment and around other men in the community.
That was the second part of a 2-part look at the issue of sexual violence and harassment against women at home and in the workplace. You can listen to both as podcasts, aptnnews.ca/podcast. Well, we are out of time for your midweek news. We're always glad to have you join us. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Dennis Ward is back here tomorrow. Have a great night.